Debt ceiling. What a U.S. default could look like. Washington faces a series of hard decisions if no agreement happens, starting with billions due to Medicare, Social Security, and military veterans. It is impossible to predict exactly how things would unfold if the U.S. takes the unprecedented step of defaulting on its debt in June. What seems likely, experts tell Yahoo Finance, is that America and the world would experience a shocking initial crisis followed by more economic damage with each passing day. Markets could plunge just as Social Security and Medicare become unable to distribute money to those who need the government safety nets. It's also clear U.S. policymakers would have to make perilous choices about millions of other bills the federal government has to pay each month. Especially if they want to buy more time and mitigate the fallout, who would be paid first, Treasury bondholders or retirees? Veterans or tax refund recipients? Defense contractors or federal employees? If bondholders get special treatment instead of Social Security recipients, the U.S. would effectively be paying wealthy investors around the world instead of paying off your grandma, said Kroll's global chief economist Megan Green. That's pretty politically toxic. The odds of a crisis rise each day even as Democrats and Republicans in Washington appear to be moving toward a deal. There is still a fear that the delicate talks could collapse as both sides try to resolve final issues. One lead negotiator, Representative Patrick McHenry, Republican North Carolina, warned reporters Thursday that nothing is resolved. J.P. Morgan Chase recently pegged the chance of a default at 1 in 4. If the previously unthinkable does happen, I think just the notion that the U.S. isn't making good on its promises is an initial shock, Green said. Then the cumulative effect will get much bigger if the default continues. First up, a mess. Markets would almost surely be in for a wild ride if the day known as the X date arrives, when the U.S. government is no longer able to pay all its bills. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Friday that could happen as early as June 5 without a deal, updating her previous estimate of June 1. What could happen on that first day? White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said it would throw the economy into chaos. Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi largely agrees, saying, "I think it will be very chaotic." On that day, he said markets will be down, it'll be a mess, but some say the underlying economic damage could be less than feared in those early hours if the Biden administration, as it is expected to do, enacts a plan to keep paying government bondholders and staves off a true default for at least a few days or weeks. Wall Street is counting on such a move to temporarily avert a worst-case scenario. Strategas Securities Managing Director Jeanette Lowe even recently said that such prioritization could mean June 1 actually wouldn't be a real default. But even if the Treasury Department were to find a way to keep paying bondholders, far from a sure thing, there are also questions about whether investors would panic and push the economy into a recession no matter what. We know that the economy is often driven by consumer and business sentiment, and if that falls off a cliff quickly, it's hard to get it back, notes Shai Akabaz, the Bipartisan Policy Center's Director of Economic Policy. J.P. Morgan predicts adverse effects in the short term, including a possible downgrading of the U.S. credit rating followed by much worse outcomes if the crisis drags out. Up next, risks to Social Security, veterans' benefits, and more. If the government misses critical payments to high-profile programs, that could ratchet up the political pressure in the days following a default. Some big ones are due at the beginning of June. On the first day of the month, the government is scheduled to make $47 billion in Medicare payments and provide $24 billion